Hello. Hi. Hola. Greeting and my handle. I have a wonderful quick secret that will help you with environments. I've been dying to match my lighting with the environment for so long, and I finally just stumbled onto something that I think you'll appreciate. And so let's just get right to it. Oh, I hit Control Z for some reason. Shift Z, thank you. Now, this is one-point lighting with a world atmosphere turned off. You can see it's set to 0. I like outdoor scenes. I've used a couple bounces, and I made this bridge just to sort of show the point, and so we can get a pretty little start picture here. Oh, that's lovely. Look at that. What it's done, what I've done is parented a sun lamp that has parallel rays to an empty. And if I show you, this is the empty. I can hit R twice and I can move it. And the parenting means I don't have to worry about tracking or linking anything with modifiers. It's just parenting a sun lamp to that. I can hit Alt R and undo the rotation. And when we look at the image again, it's straight down. So since I have my look at, I called it environment look at, I can show you how these shadows stretch and pull and follow the movement of my rotation. And the reason that I've chosen this particular lamp is because I can use a black body and set it to 5778 for the temperature, and that's essentially the temperature they say the surface of our sun is for Earth, and I don't have to put coloring the light into the equation. It's just naturally kind of this yellowish light. I've set it to 1, but I could easily set it to 9, and while that looks bright, thanks to Filmic, we can handle that intense amount of light. And to prove it, we can change the view to false color. And false color will show us when so much light is on the scene that we begin to clip the availability. So let me now change that lamp to something strong, like 16, and you'll see that false color is beginning to show areas of red, and actually it's still not high enough. Let's go to 18. There's some red. Red means you've got too much light on your scene, and no matter how you save it, at this exposure, you're going to lose information. Boy, that's really, I could go even higher. There's red. Red will clip to white. Anyhow, let's set it to 4. Let me back up, and change this view back to Filmic. And I'll show you why I'm excited. I'm excited because not all of my videos have such a good reveal. It's fun to be able to move the lamp. Let's take a quick look at how that was created. Alt-R to undo the rotations. Decimal and a 5 here. When you create anything in Blender, you hit Shift-A and you have these choices. Here's a lamp, and we can create the sun. And the sun, by default, is created where the 3D cursor is. I have it here in the center of the world. 0, 0, 0. It's pointed straight down like high noon. Control and the spacebar will hide or reveal your manipulator widget. One thing about the sun lamp is you can put it anywhere and you don't create the shadow of where the source of the light is, because the source of the light is global. So you can lose the sun lamp by moving it over here and rotating it this way and all these weird things. So just create it and lift it. Hit Shift-A, and now let's create an empty that is a single arrow. By default, that single arrow points straight up at noon. So if you've taken your new sun lamp and moved it up above the ground that you have an intention, you can select it, right-click select, hold Shift, right-click select your new arrow, and then Control-P and parent your sun to your arrow. And I don't have to worry about that because I've already done it. Once you've done it, you can then move the arrow to move the sun. Oh, I've done the wrong sun. Okay, so you right-click select the sun, right-click select the arrow, hit Control-P, left-click object, and now you can move the sun by moving the arrow, and all those parallel rays will do exactly what you expect. But maybe one I didn't hit R twice. Maybe one point lighting isn't what you want. Maybe what you want is a little atmosphere. So you go into your World tab, and if you don't have sky texture on, we can remove that. We have a color. And you choose a color, and that color is a light sky blue because you want to balance out the look of that yellow sun at 5778. Well, 1 is not going to work. 0.1 is still awfully bright. Even if you don't see the environment, those shadows are really comic book crazy intense. And so certainly the shadows gather it, and then you try to negotiate by making it a darker blue and then increasing the strength. And you're basically showing us that you are new to Blender. Welcome. While compositionally I've created a lot of good curves, and this is a very interesting looking image that I'm just going to let it sit on for a second because it's pretty. I made this bridge for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to test the scale of the sun, and this is important. The empty, I had to redo the lamp. Oh, I did the new empty too. Why, I deleted all the wrong stuff. Select the empty and call it an environment lookat. ENV lookat. And then our lamp, I will change that to the sun. Hit N as in Nancy and get rid of that. The sun that I've chosen has a size of 0.005. By default, I think it has a size of 0.2. This makes your shadows really big and fluffy, as though the sun were a big diffused ball, or perhaps it was diffused lighting from the sky. I sometimes put it down to 0.02. But even for this bridge that I created for this example, I used physical details on the bridge, like these little teeth up here, which are actually lane dividers to block headlights from oncoming traffic at night. Those are physical details. And I also created texture details, which are essentially, let's see if I can get back to this, the chain link fence is actually a plane, but when you look at the material, what I did was I used a texture to create the chain link fence with an opacity. And so that shows me in some part where the light is obeying geometric detail versus texture detail. Now I don't see any shadows from my chain link fence, so I scaled the sun down even farther to 007 or 005, just so that for this example we could see shadows of a chain link fence from a sun. And the other qualifier I did for this were the tops of these street lamps, which I think are, they're like 30 feet. In scaling the sun, I still have the head of that lamp kind of fuzzy, but you could still make out that it's the head of a lamp. So let's keep that in mind while we move on. The environment being just a color is not good. So they've offered sky textures. Here's an important detail for sky textures, and I'm going to select my environment lookat and hit Alt-R to undo that rotation. There are two kinds, Hosey Wilkie and Pretham. They're different. Pretham is interesting. It's much more saturated. Perhaps it's a little brighter. And Hosey Wilkie is, they say, a little more realistic and offers some bounce back from the ground. And bounce back is that ground albedo. You can see how the ground, the bottom of my ground is actually a color, like a green color from the ground. These things are cool. And sometimes I like to match this environment to the location of my sun lamp. The turbidity is how much humidity is in the atmosphere. And so a clear day is considered about 2. An Arctic day with very little humidity in the air is considered a 1. You can't go below 1. So the higher you go, let me see if I can get this thing up, 5 would be a hazy, hot, hazy day, like in the tropics. And so a lot of people like using 3s and stuff like that. And increasing the strength will allow for that haze around the sun. Now, if you're like me, you have tried so hard to chase that haze. You can hit N, open up this bit on the right side, and change the lens of your 3D viewport. And you can start trying to chase around where that haze is. Because sometimes when you are changing the shadows, and we could do that by changing the location of that empty and the sunlight we created. Let me do a good fun angle here. Boy, that's a lot of updating, isn't it? Let's do it like this. Now I've just moved my empty, so it's 45 degrees shooting up to the side, to the right, to the left side. But if I were amateur, I'd leave it like that. But what I really need to do is match the environment so that the sun disk matches where the light is. So you can see the sun disk right there. Well, surprise, the sun is at a real low angle coming from a different direction. So if you're trying to match your environment to your light, you cannot connect this parent empty that we have to this sphere dot direction sunshine thing that's available for the sky texture. But when you look at your scene from above in orthographic view, you are in a sense looking at it from the top of a sundial. Okay? This sphere is doing the same thing. So instead of trying to adjust the sphere from your camera's point of view, adjust it from the orthographic view of above. And I'm kind of guessing here, because guessing is the best we can do. And so now even I can tell there's more pink up in the top left, and it's a little bit more blue in the bottom right. And that is a close match, and it's an extra bit of detail if you're only using the sky texture and one-point lighting. And if I turn off the sun, it still won't give us a very strong indication of where that light is, but you can tell that this portion of the bridge is brighter from the environment than this part of the bridge. So we have come close to matching it. So that's the first part of like what I've been trying to do, and I've been trying really hard to find a way to connect my empty right here to that environment sphere. So I just discovered that there's an add-on for Blender 279 that you can turn on and have an amazing time with. So let's go to User Preferences, Add-ons, Lighting, and the only option available right now is a Dynamic Sky. Turn it on, exit User Preferences, and now a Dynamic Sky could not be found because one has not yet been created. Before I do create it, I'm going to hit Alt-R and knock out that rotation from my environment look at empty. I will create it. It is created. Let's have a look. It's the same thing because we're still using the world data block. We've just created a new data block called Dynamic 1. Let's use it. That is a dynamic sky. It's a dynamic sky because it has created a sky dome. A sky dome comes complete with clouds. These clouds and the horizon color and the color up top are all things that you can change. And you can make gray clouds, I believe. No, you just sort of make disappeary clouds. Alright, let's make some white clouds. There are those clouds. There's the brightness of the world. And it helps to look at the image here from above. There's the brightness of the world. There's 0.5. Here's 2. And the default of 1. There's shadow color saturation, cloud opacity and density, and the sun value, which we could set to 2. Ouch. And we can set to 0.5. Gray. We could leave it at default 1. And then there's my favorite, soft hard. Soft hard is quite a treat. Soft hard is a mix between soft shadows and hard shadows. And if you remember for a quick moment that I mentioned, I like having my sun at a certain size so that, where are my shadows? Oh, I zeroed it out. Clever me. So that I scaled the light. So my chain link fence would show a little bit of detail, and I also scaled my light so that the heads of these light posts would also be visible as they are sort of on the ground over here. Now to me, that's kind of an important detail. And so that is, if you will, the soft hard that is created by size. So let me turn the sun, you know what, I'm going to get totally lost if I turn the sun off right now. Let me back up. Take a look at this lovely bridge that's shaped like lips. And I'm going to hit Alt. I'm going to select my parent and knock out the rotation. Now I'll turn the sun off by lowering the strength to 0. Hang in there. I'm going to go to that world tab. I'm going to put it to a strength of 1. And it thinks for a moment because it has an awful lot to think about. There's a shadow in here. Let's take a look at the sun that's creating that shadow. And do remember the sky color and the horizon color. And do remember this input value that rolls around to tell what direction the sun is shining from. Okay, you got a lot to remember. Let's have a look. Shift F3 puts us in the node editor. We are looking at the nodes that create the world. There's nothing here. Ah, but there is. Hit decimal on the keyboard. Whoa, what? Yes, this is dynamic sky. S and X will help you scale it together on that X and put everything more into view. This is exactly why you didn't create the dynamic sky. It's really something else. Here is that normal dot sphere thing that indicates the direction of the sun. And here is a normal dot sphere thing that indicates what? This indicates the split between the sky color and the horizon color. Indulge me for a moment as we return to world. Now we're looking at the node group for the old world sky texture. And here, remember, we've turned it because I said I was going to match 45 degrees up here. I can't even tell when this thing is back to 0 center. I can't right-click it and reset it to a default value. Surprise, I can right-click it and reset it to a default value. Now it's at high noon. But if I move this, the sun moves. But if I make something move it, the entire world moves. This, my friends, is an amazing piece of information because this dot controls the horizon's horizontal attitude. This dot controls the direction from which the sun is shining. Now, those of you who are more advanced users may suddenly open your eyes and say, oh my gosh, we can finally connect the direction of a sky texture sun to something in the scene. So it's not just this weird roll it up, roll it down, where am I thing. And if you do that, remember you can right click and reset to the default value. Instead of using generated coordinates, take object, put it to mapping. We already have an object in the scene because presumably you made a sun lamp and followed the directions for an empty that was a single arrow pointed up. So environment look at. Shift F5 will get you back to your 3D view. Our 3D view has now the sun and the environment's sun connected. So this pleases me like crazy. When I hit R twice, I now no longer have to worry about that little rolly sphere thing, but there's a trade-off, okay? So I'm doing it, and I know you can see the shadow stretching, and It's really, really delicate. So I'm going to try to do the same 45 degrees to the top left that I had done before. And I think I'm doing an okay job. Let's talk about that soft hard. Right now, it's at 1. This is the hardest, smallest light that the dynamic sky will produce, meaning these shadows are as sharp as they will get. If I go to 0, this is the smoothest, largest, softest lighting that the dynamic sky sun will create. I hope that makes sense to you. So if we pick 0.5, we're somewhere in between soft and hard. So this is kind of like semi-hard, I guess. And so I had asked myself, could I put in a value of 2 or 31? Here's a value of 31. And it makes it look like you could do more. Let's go back and revisit the nodes that make up the environment and find in here the number 31. Dun, 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 dun. I know where it is. Done. I can left click select it, hit decimal on the keyboard, it centers it. Now when I zoom in, we see it's a mix. This value cannot go beyond 0 or 1. Even though it's available here as a soft hard 31. You cannot get harder than 1, and this is why. It's a mix. 0 is full color 1. 1 is full color 2. So this is something they're probably going to improve with later versions of Blender, but if you were ever curious about how to make your sun harder so your shadows were tighter, I'm afraid you can't. So what we can do is direct the sun in dynamic sky to shoot somewhere else. What we can't do is tighten it to the extent and scale that we could with a lamp. I'm going to trust that makes sense. So let me turn my sun value to 0. Now I have only the brightness of the sky color and the horizon color. So the trade-off I have to make is to go back to that sun and turn it on. And then I have to start tinkering with the settings to balance the light from my sun with the brightness and colors of the dynamic sky. I have not fully examined how to do this best, but that's what I wanted to tell you, is that you can finally take these trackball things with dynamic sky and manipulate them with something as simple as a look at object that you can create. And to me, that is a really, really special feature. Like, that is super cool. I do hope that that was something you find useful. More advanced users may say, oh, finally, man, that trackball is driving me nuts, especially with that world. We cannot tie this to anything. As a matter of fact, I'm going to try it right now. Control T, just to show you. If we try to connect this to an object and select the correct object, and we go back, Shift F5 to our 3D view, we can see that there is a sun disk in the preview. That's a good thing. It's actually right where we left it. Oh boy. Control Alt B, get rid of this. Shift Z, come into this thing. Whoa, 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 whoa. Do you see what happened? We didn't move just the sun. We moved the entire stinking horizon. Everything is like an airplane out of control. Maybe that's not clear to some of the newer users, so let's try this. We can see the horizon for the bridge. What a lovely bridge, right? Yeah, use your curve and then model some planes to follow the curve, and you can do it. Now, if I move what the horizon is attached to, you can see the sun disk moves, but it takes with it the entire horizon. So there must be, someone decided, a way to make that even better, and by George, Dynamic Sky does it. And the way it does it is through the magic of nodes, all these crazy nodes. So dig in, take a look at those nodes, figure out whatever it is you need to figure out, and I hope that that little tiny secret saves you tons of time. Thanks for watching.